Hey y'all, it's Nicole at Muchka in the Making, and I'm so glad you could join us for this week's project. But before I get into that, I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, because when we get a new subscriber or even a like or a comment, and especially a share, that gives us so much encouragement. And while we're just beginners now, we're just learning how to do this whole video thing, but hopefully we're going to get better and better as time goes on, and the better we get, the more good content we can pass along to you. And that's the goal. We want to be able to bring you good stuff. So I would be so grateful if you would like and subscribe and share. That just helps us more than you know. But anyway, enough about that. Today's project is an alcohol ink epoxy tumbler. And this is something that just started out as a regular old stainless steel tumbler. You can see I got a little bit of the ink on the inside too, but that's something that can be fixed with just a little bit of regular acetone. But this was just a regular tumbler, and we went through a process to just give it this pretty swirly design on it that you see now. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and I'll be back in just a minute to give you the first step. Okay, you notice there's another tumbler in the background. That is because this is actually take 3. I had a couple of little issues. The first time that I tried spray painting the tumbler, my camera wasn't on. The second time, my can of paint wouldn't spray. And so here we are using a whole different color than planned, and that's okay. Not sure which one I'll use in the wind-up, but the spray paint just helps the epoxy to stick a little bit better. The reason that I put a little piece of wood under it is so I can turn it as I paint, and the paint just, like I said, helps it to stick a little bit better. And so once that's had time to dry, we'll come back in, do the epoxy and the alcohol ink. Okay, so here I have the cup that I was spray painting earlier, or one of the cups that I was spray painting earlier. It's on the cup turner. The turner I purchased on Amazon for somewhere around $25. It's been a few months since I bought that, but I think that's right, about $25. The turner is what keeps the cup spinning slowly so that your epoxy is not running and dripping, and it gives you an even coat. And speaking of epoxy, this is what we're using. It's the Limelite Amazing Clear Cast 2-part coating and casting resin. I've tried another kind before. I didn't like it, so I didn't like it because it didn't set up. I ended up having to throw the first cup that I did away because the epoxy never sat up. So I really recommend that Limelite. Now, it comes in 2 parts. You want to mix your A side and your B side in equal parts. And to do that, I use medicine cups. So I'm using 2 medicine cups and then just a bathroom cup to mix it evenly. So you're going to want to mix about a tablespoon of your A side and a tablespoon of your B side, and measure them out in the medicine cups, pour them into the bathroom cup, and then mix them together for about 3 minutes. And now for the fun part. Once that epoxy is mixed, it's going to be a little bit milky looking, but that's good. You don't want a whole lot of bubbles in it though. But the heat gun that we're going to use in a few minutes is going to help with that too. But this is the fun part. First we're going to turn the cup turner on, and I don't know if you can tell, but it's not the coat of paint that I put on with the spray paint. It's not just perfectly even, and that's okay because the epoxy is going to take care of a lot of that. But you just want to get your cup as level as possible. For some reason my turner is not always just perfectly level, and so I've got some popsicle sticks up under that, just like the one that I used to stir up the epoxy. But I've picked the colors of the alcohol ink that we're going to be using. We're going to use the Pinata Pink, and we're going to use Blue Violet, and we're also going to use the teal for this cup. And then just depending on how it's going, we're probably going to come in with some white as well. And the white I have diluted with a little bit of 70% just rubbing alcohol, because it had kind of, I've had this alcohol ink for a little bit, and it had kind of set up a little bit and was coming out clumpy. And if that starts happening, all you have to do is just dilute it with just that little bit of alcohol. So now we're going to start applying our epoxy. This feels good under your fingers. I don't know, it's like I said, it's very satisfying. And we're just going to put on a pretty heavy coat of that. And that cup turner turns pretty slow, but it's still, you're just going to need to put on as it makes each rotation, just make sure that you have that side well covered, working all the way up to the edge, because you want your edge to be smooth at the top, because most people are going to use a lid on these, but you know, if you use it without one, you don't want a rough edge up under your lips when you take a drink. That would not be very satisfying at all. So just keep on going till you've used up your epoxy. I think they call that a flood coat. So you just really want to get that all over it. And I have done some tumblers with glitter, and there's a different technique to doing that, but the alcohol ink is my favorite. I think it's a lot more simple, or maybe not more simple, but it's not as there's not as many steps to the alcohol ink as there are with the glitter. But just make sure the bottom is covered up real good too. Like I said, just let that turn and make sure you've got it right where on the 30-ounce tumblers, where the curve, where the very bottom meets the top part of the cup. Make sure you get it real smooth in there, because that can be a problem area where some either there's either a bare area or where some tries to pool, and you don't want either. You just want it really, really even, and you can feel when it's even. And also our heat gun is going to help with that in a minute. But once you've got that part done, you can take the gloves off. The alcohol ink is a little bit messy, so you might want to get another glove for that part of it. You don't have to, because you can get it off with like acetone. I use acetone a lot of times to get the alcohol ink off of my hands. But I'm going to start with the teal, and I'm just going to drop it just in little droplets, just randomly all over the cup. I like the way that teal is looking on the white. I think that's really pretty, or it's actually off-white, but anyway. So once you get that going, then just take your next color, and in this case we're going with the pink, and I'm just going to do the same thing with the pink. Just drop some drops of the pink here and there all over, and make sure you get some up at your rim too, and it doesn't take just a whole lot of the alcohol inks. But now I'm going to come back in with my blue violet. I really like the way this is looking, and it's going to cover up the imperfections in the paint once we get it well coated. Again, make sure you get some up at your rim. And I'm not going to go too crazy with the blue violet because it is dark. It's a darker color than the first two. But just get those swirling around in there. And now we're going to hit it with a heat gun. And that's for a twofold purpose. First of all, it moves the ink around and helps it to blend. But it also gets out any air bubbles that might cause problems for you. So this is a heat gun. My husband got this for me for Christmas because that's what I asked for. I use it for a lot of things. If I'm painting or whatever, I use it on my canvases or wood or whatever I'm doing. But it's good for this too, and that's the primary purpose that I wanted it for, is to do these mugs. But just turn that on high and just go over your mug while it's turning with the heat gun. And then you can kind of better tell if you're going to need some more ink or not. I think we may end up using a little bit more ink on this, but I think we've pretty well got the air bubbles out of there. I love how that's blending down on the very bottom of the cup. I think that's looking good, but I do want a little bit more ink, I think. So I'm going to first take some more pink, just like we did before, and just in the bare places, or even over the other pink, because it's going to darken it up a bit if you go in with a second coating of it. You can tell, I hope you can see on the camera how it kind of gives it a little bit different effect. For one, the epoxy is hot now from that heat gun, and also just having a second coat makes a little bit of a difference too. So let's do the same thing with the teal. And that teal, actually, it looks more green until you get it on the cup, but then it really starts looking that pretty blue-green color, and I just love that. But just, like I said, just randomly here and there, I know I say this about a lot of my projects, but there's truly no rhyme or reason about this. You just kind of, wherever you think it'll look good, and don't think too much about it, just put it on there. And then repeat the step with the blue violet, and you can see it's all kind of running together now. That's what you want it to do, because after it sets, I'll let this set while I'm working right now. It's probably, I don't even know for sure what time it is. I think it's about 6 o'clock, and I'll let this set at least until bedtime, and then I'll come and I'll turn it off. But that's going to give it plenty of time to swirl together and make all these pretty patterns that, you know, I wouldn't be able to make. It's just what happens in the process. So yeah, you want to leave a little bit of your base color just because that's what makes it show up good. You know, I have used the black, but you have to use different colors with the black than you would with the white, just to make it show up good. And I have just a little bit of this pearlescent, or it's actually called Pinata Pearl, and I'm going to put just a little bit of that in there too. I just think that that looks really good. I don't really even know what I'm going to do with this cup yet, but this just gives it a little bit more. That's not wanting to come out. I'm probably going to have to take some alcohol and dilute it down too. Ooh, there it goes. Yeah, just careful with that. I didn't realize that was going to come out in a rush like that, but it did, and it's still going to be pretty. Just a little unexpected. Get some on the bottom here too. I love how that bottom is swirling together. Alright. Well, Yeah, that's really not wanting to come out. I don't know. Like I said, I probably should have, whoop. I keep doing that. Probably should have diluted that down a little bit more with the alcohol to keep it from just coming out in a rush like that. It goes from being completely stopped up to just coming out, just gushing out. But anyway, you can see the pattern that has developed. I don't think we'll just necessarily have to do it again with the heat gun, but I'm going to just for a couple seconds. For a few seconds. And we're just going to leave that turning for a few hours until it starts setting up, and we'll be back to show you what the outcome is. Okay, so please excuse the noise in the background. I'm working on a vinyl project at the same time, so you can probably hear my Cricut running. So anyway, just try to tune that out. I did just want to come back and tell you just a little bit about the finished product. I said I was going to show you the finished product, and this is it, just like you saw in the beginning. It does have a little more ink on it than I showed you at the very end where I was putting the ink on and had hit it with the heat gun, and that is because after it had turned a few minutes and moved a few minutes, I decided that it did need a little bit more, so I added just a little bit more ink, and I think that is actually when I got this on the inside of the rim. So all that's left to do now is just take some, I could probably get it off with nail polish remover, but I've also got some 100% acetone, so I'm just going to get that off. And I also went back over this with another coat of epoxy. That just smooths it out a little bit more, just makes it a little more shiny and pretty. So that's all there is to it. Alcohol ink tumblers are super satisfying and fun to make, and you can do that with just a little bit of investment in the cup turner and your epoxy alcohol inks, and you're good to go. And the best thing about it is they're good for personal use or for gift giving or just whatever. They're just fun to make. So I hope you enjoyed this week's project. I hope you will also hop over and check out the blog post, which will give some more details about all this at mochkinthemaking.com. I would love for you to also subscribe to the blog. That would be great. But again, thank you for watching, and we'll be back next week with a whole new project. And once again, I'm not sure yet what it's going to be, but I'll see you then. Bye-bye.